Imagine this scenario for a second. You were visiting London, right?
Oh, I'd love to be in London right now.
Right. So you've had a long day walking around, checking out all the sights, and you decide to step into this, like, really traditional, cozy British pub.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah. And you walk right up to the bartender feeling, incredibly confident in your English, and you ask for a large, refreshing pint.
Oh, no. Oh, I know where this is going.
The bartender just completely stops. I mean, the entire pub goes quiet. People are literally staring at you.
And why is that?
Because, well, you didn't order a beer. You just asked the bartender to serve you a bucket of wall coloring. You basically asked to drink paint.
It is, honestly, it's a terrifying thought, but it happens way more often than you would think. I mean, just one tiny slip of a vowel sound, and suddenly you are consuming home improvement supplies instead of, like, a nice beverage.
Exactly. And today, our entire mission is to make sure you never drink paint, never accidentally insult someone's age, and definitely never bake a plastic container in your oven.
Oh, that sounds like a very specific personal story there.
We will get to that later, I promise. But first, welcome everyone to this deep dive into your latest class materials. I'm your host, and sitting right across from me is your expert guide to all things linguistic.
Good morning. We are just so incredibly thrilled to be here with you on this beautiful Friday morning, April 17th, 2026.
We really are. And we are speaking directly to you, our dedicated students of the English Conversations course, Group T262.
Yes, you are currently navigating the A2 level of the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. And honestly, we know exactly who you are and what you are dealing with every single day.
We really do. I mean, you are managing a household. You're likely holding down a demanding job. You're, the emotional anchor for your family.
Absolutely. And yet here you are carving out time to study through AcademiaBSB's SMART courses.
It's amazing. Learning a language via distance education, it requires a profound level of commitment.
It really does. And our original platform materials are designed specifically for you, the modern adult Brazilian woman, to basically bring the classroom right into your living room.
So true. So our goal today is to extract the absolute vital insights from your recent notes. We are going way beyond just like memorizing definitions.
Right. We want to understand the actual architecture of the language.
Yeah. We're going to explore the precise vocabulary you need for high-stakes medical situations, unpack the psychology behind the adjectives we use to describe human behavior, and dissect the mechanical rules of grammar that tell the story of our past habits.
It is a packed roadmap, so let's jump straight into the reality of daily life. When we look at the vocabulary from your current class, the very first thing that jumps out is the medical terminology.
Navigating a hospital is already an anxiety-inducing experience in your native language, right?
Oh, completely. It's stressful.
Yeah, so doing it in a second language feels like climbing a mountain without a rope.
For sure. The cognitive load during a medical emergency is massive. Your brain is panicked, which makes, language retrieval incredibly difficult.
Right, which is why these specific terms like MRI, computer tomography, and X-ray, they need to be deeply, deeply embedded in your memory.
Exactly. Let's break down MRI. It's so fascinating how much English relies on acronyms in medical settings.
It really is a hallmark of the English healthcare system, isn't it?
It is. So MRI stands for magnetic resonance imaging. But here is the critical part. You do not say the full phrase.
Right. Please don't say that at the hospital.
Yeah. If you walk into a clinic and ask for magnetic resonance imaging, you will sound like a textbook. The receptionist might actually be confused for a split second. You must spell out the letters individually. MRI.
And the stress is on that final letter, right? MRI. The voice sort of goes up slightly at the end.
Yes, exactly. The same rule applies to the CT scan, which is short for computer tomography. You just say CT.
It's so much faster.
It is. The rhythmic stress on these acronyms is really a subtle marker of fluency. And then, of course, you have the classic X-ray.
Knowing these terms is really about empowerment, because often, as women, we act as the chief medical officers for our entire extended family.
Oh, 100%. We are the ones demanding the MRI for a parent or scheduling the X-ray for a child's sports injury.
Exactly. Having this exact vocabulary gives you authority. You aren't just a passive participant. You are managing the care.
That concept of caregiving actually transitions perfectly into another crucial distinction in your notes, the difference between the adjectives old and elderly.
Oh, this is a big one. It's practically a cultural minefield if you aren't careful.
It really is.
I really want to challenge this one, though, because I've heard some debate about it. In my mind, old is just like a factual statement of age. A building is old. A tree is old. Why is it considered problematic to call a person old?
Well, it comes down to the cultural association with utility. In many Western English-speaking cultures, youth is highly prized.
That makes sense.
Right, so when we describe an object as old, we often imply it is broken, outdated, or maybe no longer useful. An old phone goes in the trash. An old car breaks down.
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, so when you apply that blunt adjective directly to a human being, like saying he is an old man, it can subconsciously carry that exact same baggage. It just lacks softness.
So it feels too direct, almost like clinical or dismissive.
Yes, exactly. That is where elderly comes in. The suffix elderly in English often functions to modify or soften a concept.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, elderly is intrinsically tied to the noun elder, which historically denotes a person of wisdom, leadership, and respect in a community. By adding the elderly, you are creating an adjective that means in the manner of an elder. It confers dignity.
But wait, isn't there a movement now where some older adults feel that elderly sounds a bit too fragile or patronizing, like it implies they need constant medical care?
That is a very sharp observation. Language is always evolving, right? And yes, in recent years, some people do prefer terms like senior citizen or simply older adult because elderly can imply frailty.
Right, it's tricky.
It is. However, in the context of your A2 curriculum and general polite conversation, elderly remains the safest, most respectful standard alternative to the bluntness of old. It shows you actually care about the person's dignity.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It really is the intention behind the word. Speaking of daily care routines, the notes also draw a distinction between taking a bath and taking a shower.
Yes.
And I feel like we have to remind our listeners about the infrastructure of English-speaking homes here, because it's different.
Absolutely. The physical realities of a country dictate its language. In many English-speaking countries, especially historically, homes were built with large tubs.
Right.
So to take a bath literally means to fill that tub with warm water and physically sit in it. It is a slow, relaxing process.
Right. Whereas for daily hygiene, like getting ready for work, you stand under the running water. That is taking a shower.
Exactly.
Because if you tell your boss, sorry I am late, I had to take a long bath this morning, they are literally going to picture you lounging with candles and a novel on a Tuesday morning.
Which, I mean, might be a wonderful life choice, but probably not the professional image you want to project to your boss.
Definitely not.
And notice the verb take is doing a lot of heavy lifting in both phrases, meaning to engage in or experience the action.
Let's move outside the house for a minute. Your notes featured two agricultural terms that paint a very specific picture. Farm and ranch.
Yes, these are great.
Now, I know we translate both of these to roughly the same concept in Portuguese, but in English, the visual imagery is entirely different.
It really is. A farm is the broader, more general term. It is an area of land primarily devoted to agricultural processes.
So, like crops.
Right. If you are growing corn, wheat, or apples, that is a farm. If you have dairy cows for milk, that is a dairy farm. But a ranch brings to mind a very specific, usually North American geography.
I immediately picture cowboys, open plains, and horses.
And you are correct to picture that. A ranch is specifically a large farm used for raising herd animals, primarily cattle, sheep, or horses.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you don't grow crops on a ranch, you raise livestock. The landscape is usually more rugged and expansive.
So, an apple farm, but a cattle ranch. I just love the precision of English nouns.
They are very precise.
Now, let's bring it back from the open plains to the reality of the daily grind. Two heavily featured words in this section are duties and seriously.
The phrase to take your duties seriously is really foundational. Let's look at duty first. A duty is not just a task. It is a moral or legal obligation.
Right.
It carries a weight that a word like chore just does not. Washing the dishes is a chore. Providing for your family is a duty.
Wow, that is a profound distinction. And when you take those duties seriously, you're acting earnestly. You aren't cutting corners. You aren't doing the bare minimum. You are giving the obligation the profound respect it actually deserves.
Which perfectly describes the women listening to this deep dive right now, don't you think?
Absolutely. Managing a household, building a career, studying a language at night. I mean, these are immense duties, and committing to this course proves they are taking them seriously.
And to handle that kind of pressure requires a very specific set of psychological tools, which bridges us directly into the massive list of personality traits in your current class notes.
Oh, this list is fantastic.
The notes divide human behavior into positive and negative traits. The positive list is extensive. Talkative, supportive, reliable, confident, hardworking, responsible, detail-oriented, ambitious, honest, creative, open-minded, patient, independent, determined, generous, and flexible.
We could literally spend an entire day just analyzing this list alone, but let's isolate a few to really understand the mechanics of how they function.
Sounds good.
I want to look at supportive versus reliable, because from the outside, they might look like the same kind of good friend, but linguistically, they describe entirely different mechanisms of friendship.
That is a great way to frame it. So supportive comes from the verb to support, which means to bear the weight of something.
Like a pillar.
Exactly. A supportive friend is an emotional pillar. If you lose your job or you are going through a terrible heartbreak, the supportive friend is the one who sits with you, listens to you cry, and holds your emotional weight.
I love that. But a reliable friend, that comes from the root word rely, meaning to depend on with full trust.
Precisely. A reliable friend might not be the best at talking about deep emotions, but if your car breaks down at 2:00 a.m. in the freezing rain and you call them, they will be there in 10 minutes.
You show up.
They do exactly what they say they will do. Reliability is about consistency in action. Supportiveness is about emotional availability.
And honestly, you need both in your life.
For sure.
I also want to contrast hardworking and detail-oriented. I think sometimes we confuse putting in a lot of effort with being precise.
Oh, effort definitely does not equal precision. Hardworking is about volume and endurance. It is putting in long hours, sweating through the difficulties, and not giving up until the project is totally done. But detail-oriented is microscopic. A detail-oriented person focuses on the tiny, intricate parts of a task that most people gloss over.
So, it is the difference between building the entire house, that is hardworking, and making sure every single tile in the bathroom is perfectly aligned with the grout. That is detail-oriented.
That is a brilliant example. Exactly. In language learning, you really must be both. You have to be hardworking to show up for the classes every week, but you must be detail-oriented to notice the subtle difference between old and elderly.
We also have open-minded. I find this adjective is really the ultimate prerequisite for fluency.
How so?
Well, it means you're willing to consider new ideas without immediate prejudice. When a language rule doesn't make sense compared to your native tongue, a closed-minded person gets frustrated and says, English is stupid.
Right.
But an open-minded person says, okay, this is a new reality. Let's figure out how this culture thinks.
It is cognitive flexibility, but as we know, human nature isn't just about positive growth.
Unfortunately.
We have our shadow sides. The notes also provide a robust list of negative personality traits. Impulsive, impatient, irresponsible, aggressive, jealous, stubborn, selfish, moody, arrogant, lazy, and bossy.
Okay, I have a major question about the definition of jealous provided in the source material. It specifically defines jealousy as feeling sad when other people give attention to your husband.
Yes, that is an incredibly specific, hyper-relational definition provided in the context of the lesson.
But it feels way too narrow to me. What if I am upset that my coworker got the promotion I wanted? Isn't that being jealous?
This is a brilliant psychological nuance in the English language. Technically, what you just described with the coworker is envy, not jealousy.
Wait, there is a difference between envy and jealousy. I thought they were the same thing.
A massive difference. Envy involves two people. You want something that another person has. Your coworker has a promotion. You want it. You are envious.
Okay, two people.
Right. Jealousy, however, strictly involves three people. Is the fear of losing something you already possess to a third party.
Oh my goodness. So you have a relationship with your husband, and a third person comes in and threatens that bond. You are terrified of losing the connection you already hold. That is jealousy.
Exactly. The notes use the husband example because it perfectly illustrates the three-party dynamic of true jealousy. It is the emotional response to a perceived threat to a valued relationship.
That completely changes how I view those words. That is so helpful. Let's look at another pair that gets confused. Moody and impatient. They both result in someone being difficult to be around, but the internal engine driving them is different, right?
Yes, impatient is strictly a relationship with time. The root word implies a lack of endurance for delay.
Like waiting in line?
Exactly. If the line at the grocery store isn't moving or a website takes way too long to load, the impatient person feels a surge of frustration. The trigger is always external timing.
But a moody person?
A moody person has an internal weather system that is highly volatile. The word comes from mood, a temporary state of mind. A moody person experiences rapid, unpredictable shifts in emotion.
So it's not about waiting.
No. They can be laughing and cheerful at 10 a.m. and furious and withdrawn at 10:15 a.m., and you have absolutely no idea what caused the shift. It isn't about time, it is about emotional instability.
That is fascinating. We all have that friend. Or, if we are completely honest,
Yeah.
sometimes we are that friend.
Oh, for sure.
And recognizing these traits in ourselves and our social circles is the only way this vocabulary actually moves from short-term memory to long-term fluency.
Applying the vocabulary to real-life scenarios is absolutely critical, which brings us to the exercises from your past class where your teacher did exactly that.
Before we dissect those kitchen exercises, I have to confess something.
Okay.
We are about to talk about verbs like fry, bake, and boil. And looking at these words triggered a deeply, deeply traumatic memory of a culinary disaster I had last week.
Oh no, please share. I need to hear this.
So I was trying to cook an intricate soup recipe I found on an English blog. I was acting very impulsive and definitely not detail-oriented.
Two great vocab words there.
Thank you. The instructions said to let the broth slightly boil and simmer on the stove, but I misread the word entirely. I took the entire soup, which was in a thick plastic container, and I put it in the oven to bake.
Wait, you put a plastic container inside a hot oven to bake?
I totally did. Let me tell you, the plastic did not survive the baking process.
I can't even imagine.
It melted into a toxic puddle, the soup spilled everywhere, and the smell of burning plastic permeated my house for 3 days. I felt incredibly irresponsible.
That is a terrifying yet absolutely perfect example of why these verbs matter. The physical mechanics of bake versus boil are fundamentally different.
Let's break those mechanics down based on exercise 1. The first question asks what a chef does with eggs in hot oil. The answer is fry.
Right, so frying requires fat or oil as the conductive medium for heat. You are applying direct high heat through a liquid fat.
And boiling.
Boiling, which you should have done with your soup, uses water as the conductive medium. Boiling happens when a liquid reaches a temperature where it turns into vapor, creating bubbles.
And baking, the source of my disaster, relies on dry, ambient heat in an enclosed space, usually an oven. You bake bread, you bake cakes. You do not bake plastic soup containers.
Lesson learned.
Yes, the hard way.
The exercise also introduces the physical transformation of chocolate. When it becomes cold, it will harden.
I really love the suffix on here. It turns the adjective hard into a verb meaning to become hard. We see this all the time, right? Soften, whiten, make.
Exactly. The chocolate literally changes its physical state from a liquid to a solid. Contrast that with the phrasal verb used for the hot coffee in the exercises. The student waited for the coffee to cool off.
Right.
Cool off is a reduction in temperature, but it doesn't necessarily change the state of the object. The coffee is still liquid, just less hot.
And cool off has that brilliant dual meaning. If you are acting moody or aggressive, a friend might tell you to take a walk and cool off. You are reducing your emotional temperature.
Emotional regulation is vital. The exercises also tested personality traits in context. Exercise 1 asked about a student who studies hard and never misses class. The correct answer was diligent.
Now, how does diligent differ from hardworking? Because we talked about hardworking earlier.
They are definitely cousins, but diligent carries a sense of careful, persistent effort. A hardworking person might dig a hole very fast. A diligent person will carefully map out where the hole needs to be, dig it at a steady pace, and make sure the edges are perfectly straight.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Diligence implies care and conscientiousness.
I see. Moving to exercise 2, we match personality words to definitions. The definition speaks directly and honestly matches with straightforward.
I adore the word straightforward. Literally, straight meaning without curves or bends, and forward meaning ahead.
No detours.
Exactly. A straightforward person's communication goes directly from their brain to your ears without navigating a maze of hints or passive aggression.
We also had cautious, defined as being careful to avoid risks. A cautious person looks both ways before crossing a one-way street.
Exercises 3 and 4 took us back to the mechanics of the kitchen with fill-in-the-blank questions. We had to pour the milk.
The physics of pour are interesting to me. It specifically requires a liquid flowing from a container due to gravity. You can't pour a solid object unless it acts like a liquid, like sand or rice.
Exactly right. And speaking of liquids, the notes contrast the adjectives thick and thin.
Now, in Portuguese, we use different concepts for the viscosity of liquids. But in English, you use the exact same words you'd use for a book or a wall.
Yes. It's a visual metaphor applied to fluid dynamics. A book with 800 pages is thick. A rich, heavy sauce that moves slowly is also thick.
And thin.
A piece of paper is thin. Apple juice, which flows quickly like water, is thin.
That makes it so much easier to remember. Finally, exercises 5 and 6 dealt with contextual logic in a university setting. An intelligent person solves problems well, and the person who explains science is the professor in a biology class.
Which perfectly encapsulates the learning journey. The intelligent student uses diligent effort to master straightforward communication.
That is a beautiful summary.
Thank you.
But, as my plastic soup disaster proves, reading a word and producing it correctly are two very different challenges. My mistake was misreading. But a much more common trap for language learners is mispronouncing.
Oh, definitely.
You can know the definition of every single word we just discussed, but if your physical mouth movements are wrong, no one will understand you.
Phonetics is basically the physical sport of language. It requires muscle memory and extreme precision, and that is the focus of your past class pronunciation section.
The notes highlight a very specific suffix, XX. The verbatim list is mathematics, gymnastics, economics. Now, I know for a fact that the Brazilian brain desperately wants to add an extra vowel sound to the end of these words. We want to say mathematici.
It is entirely natural to want to do that. Your native language has a consonant-vowel rhythm. Words rarely end on a hard, abrupt consonant cluster, but English is full of abrupt stops.
So how do we fix it? What is the actual physical mechanism for the ick sound?
The sound is X. You start with a short, relaxed I sound. Your tongue is relatively high in the mouth, but relaxed. Then the back of your tongue lifts to touch the soft palate to make the K sound.
Okay, K sound.
Right. And immediately after the K releases, the tip of your tongue rises to the alveolar ridge, that little bumpy area just behind your top teeth, and you push air through to make the S.
I'm going to try that slowly. Back of the tongue lifts for K, tip of the tongue lifts for SKS. It is like a sharp hiss.
Yes, perfect. And the critical rule for words ending in X is that the primary stress almost always falls on the syllable immediately preceding the suffix.
Let's test that theory. Mathematics, gymnastics, economics. You are entirely right. It is like a drum beat that peaks right before the end, and then the word sharply drops off.
Mastering that rhythm instantly elevates your accent.
But the real villain of the past class pronunciation notes are what we call false similarities. Words that look identical to the eye, but sound entirely different to the ear. And this brings us right back to my PED scenario, the words pint and paint.
This pair perfectly illustrates the absolute chaos of English spelling. They are spelled P-I-N-T and P-A-I-N-T, literally just one letter of difference.
Why on earth are they pronounced so differently? I mean, it feels like the language is playing a trick on us.
It is, but it is a historical trick. This requires a tiny linguistic tangent.
Go for it.
Hundreds of years ago, English underwent something called the Great Vowel Shift. The way vowels were pronounced changed dramatically, but the invention of the printing press meant the spelling of the words got frozen in time.
Oh, wow.
So we are spelling words like people did in the 1400s, but pronouncing them like modern people.
That is incredibly frustrating, but also deeply fascinating. So let's look at the modern pronunciation. The unit of liquid measurement, often used for beer, is a pint. P-I-N-T.
Right. The vowel sound here is a diphthong, lapé. A diphthong means your mouth physically moves from one vowel sound to another within the exact same syllable.
Okay.
You start with your mouth wide open, an ah sound, and glide your jaw up into a smiling e sound, i.e., pint.
Pint. It rhymes with giant or client. My jaw drops significantly.
Exactly. Now, the colorful liquid you put on walls? Paint. P-A-I-N-T. This uses a completely different diphthong, e.
Like the letter A in the alphabet.
Yes. Your jaw does not drop nearly as much. You start with an A sound and glide to an E, E-E, paint. It rhymes with saint or faint.
So if you want a beer, drop your jaw. Pint. If you want to decorate a wall, keep your jaw tense. Paint. The muscle memory is the only thing that will save you from drinking wall coloring in London.
This is exactly why phonetic practice cannot be passive. You must feel the tension in your jaw and tongue.
Let's apply that active practice to the robust list of words in the current class pronunciation section. The notes provide an extensive list.
Yes.
I will read each word and weave it into a contextual sentence so we can hear its natural rhythm. Let's start. Nurse. The nurse managed the intensive care unit with incredible skill.
Notice the sound in nurse. Sirs. The lips are neutral. The tongue is curled back slightly.
Especially, I love cooking, especially baking cakes. Personalities. Our team is successful because of the diverse personalities. Values. She demonstrated strong values during the crisis. Each of the students submitted an essay.
Let's pause on that one. The word each ends in the SH sound. Tess. It is explosive. Your tongue must physically touch the roof of your mouth and release. It is not a soft sheaf sound. Not eesh, but each.
That is a subtle but vital correction. Let's continue. Naturally. She has naturally curly hair. Compatible. Their working styles were surprisingly compatible. World. They want to travel the world.
Oh, world is notoriously difficult.
It really is.
It contains the sound, an L, and a D all clustered together. Your tongue has to do an acrobatic flip from the back of the mouth for the R to the front teeth for the L and snap down for the D, W-R-L-D.
It literally feels like a workout for my tongue. Next, we have expected. The storm arrived exactly when expected. Humor. A good sense of humor is a wonderful personality trait.
With humor, do not silence the H. In Portuguese, the H is silent. In English, it requires a push of air from the diaphragm. Airmer.
Pushing air. Got it. Moving on. Heart. The heart pumps blood through the body. Unexpectedly. The meeting was canceled unexpectedly. Often. I often drink tea in the afternoon. Cause. What was the root cause of the problem? Equipment. The hospital invested in new diagnostic equipment.
That is a phenomenal list. But buried right in the middle, there is another pair of false similarities that trip up nearly every learner. Heart versus hurt.
Oh, this pair is merciless. Let's put these two under the microscope.
Let's start with heart. H-E-A-R-T, the vital organ in your chest. The vowel sound is 10.
It is the sound a doctor asks you to make when they look at your throat. See,
Precisely. To produce this sound correctly, your jaw must drop dramatically. The tongue is flat and rests at the bottom of your mouth. The space inside your mouth is entirely open. Heart.
Heart. My chin goes down. Now compare that to hurt. H-U-R-T, the verb meaning to cause pain or injury.
Right. The vowel sound shifts entirely to is. To make this sound, your jaw comes up. It does not drop.
Jaw comes up.
Your lips become slightly tense, almost like you were preparing to whistle, but not quite. The sides of your tongue lift to touch your uppy back teeth. The sound is resonant and trapped in the center of your mouth. Hurt.
So if I want to tell a doctor about chest pain, I have to navigate a massive physical shift in my mouth. My jaw drops open for the organ, heart. Then my jaw snaps up and my tongue curls for the pain, hurt.
My heart hurts.
If you do not execute that jaw movement, the words literally blur together. You end up saying, my hurt hurts, or my heart hearts. The physical movement is the only way to establish the linguistic boundary.
Establishing boundaries. What a perfect transition, because pronunciation establishes physical boundaries of sound. But our next section, use of language, is all about establishing social boundaries in conversation.
The phrases highlighted in this section are the secret weapons of fluent native-sounding communication. They allow you to navigate complex social interactions without sounding like a robotic dictionary. First on the list is the phrase, at some moments. The notes define this simply as, not all the time.
It is a variation of sometimes, but it carries a completely different psychological weight.
How so?
While sometimes is a factual statement of frequency, at some moments is reflective, almost philosophical. It acknowledges the complexity of a situation.
I can see that. If I say, sometimes learning English is hard, it is a simple fact. But if I say, at some moments, I feel overwhelmed by the grammar, I am inviting you to empathize with my emotional state.
Exactly. It creates intimacy in the conversation. Next, we have the phrase, I got it.
This is an absolute classic. It is the universal signal for comprehension.
In formal settings, you might say, I understand the instructions. But in the rapid flow of real-life communication, I got it as the lubricant that keeps the conversation moving.
Yeah, you hear it everywhere.
It signals not just comprehension, but capability. It means I understand and I can handle it.
And finally, the notes provide a statistical breakdown of the word rarely. They define it as happening roughly 3% of the time.
That 3% metric is a brilliant way to quantify a boundary. Rarely doesn't mean never, but it means the occurrence is so infrequent that it should be treated as an anomaly.
Let's see how these phrases work under pressure. Let's do a role play.
Oh, fun.
I want you to act as an incredibly demanding, perhaps slightly bossy project manager. You are trying to dump a massive amount of extra work on my desk on a Friday afternoon, and I am going to use these 3 phrases to professionally protect my time.
I love a good role play. Let me find my bossy persona. All right, here we go.
Listen, I need you to completely rewrite the quarterly report by tomorrow morning. I know it's a massive document, but you must do this immediately.
I appreciate the urgency of the report, and at some moments I don't mind putting in extra hours to ensure the team succeeds. But I rarely work on weekends. Perhaps only 3% of the time for extreme, unforeseen emergencies. This report was scheduled for next Wednesday.
But the executives want to see a draft on Monday. You have to understand my position here. I hear your concern, and I got it. I understand the executives are anxious, but to ensure the detail-oriented quality the report needs, I will begin the rewrite first thing on Monday morning.
And scene. That was a masterclass in conversational boundary setting.
Let's analyze what just happened there. How did those specific phrases diffuse the tension?
Well, first, you validated the pressure I was applying with at some moments. You didn't reject my reality outright. You conceded that flexibility exists.
Right.
Then, you deployed rarely to build a massive 97% wall around your weekend. You quantified your boundary. Finally, when I pushed back with anxiety about the executives, you used "I got it" to validate my emotion, which allowed you to pivot to your solution without sounding combative.
It is linguistic aikido. You use the energy of the language to protect yourself. But of course, none of this sophisticated boundary setting is possible if the structural foundation of your sentence collapses. Which brings us to the engine room of communication, Section 5, Grammar.
Grammar is often viewed as a list of arbitrary rules designed to torture students, but it is actually the physics of the language.
I always tell my students to think of grammar as the skeleton of communication. Without a skeleton, a body is just a puddle on the floor.
What an image.
Grammar is what holds your beautiful vocabulary together so it can stand up, walk around, and interact with the world.
That is a perfect metaphor. And the skeleton we are examining today is fundamental, the grammar of existence, both in the present and the past.
This specific grammar point is a massive hurdle for Brazilian learners. And we need to explain why. In Portuguese, we use the verb to have, ter, for both possession and existence.
Right.
We say, "Eu tenho carro," meaning I have a car for possession, and we say, "tem carro na rua," meaning there is a car in the street for existence. The brain is wired to use the exact same verb for both concepts.
But English strictly separates these concepts into two entirely different grammatical structures. You absolutely cannot use the verb to have to declare that something exists in a location. Have strictly implies ownership or relationship.
So if I translate directly from my native brain and say, "have a dog in my house," what does an English speaker actually hear?
It sounds like a fragmented command. Because there is no subject, it sounds like you are ordering me to consume or acquire a dog.
Oh, wow.
It is grammatically nonsensical. To state existence, English uses what we call a dummy subject. We use the word there coupled with the verb to be.
Let's look at the elegance of this rule. It is purely mathematical based on quantity. For singular existence, we use there is. The notes provide the affirmative example. There is a beautiful woman in my house.
One woman, singular existence, there is.
For the negative, we simply attach not to the verb, there isn't a dog in my house. And for the interrogative, the question, we apply the golden rule of English questions. We invert the subject and the verb, is there a dog in your house?
But what happens when the quantity increases?
We shift the verb to plural. There are. There are books in my house. Negative, there aren't books. Interrogative inversion, are there books?
It is a rigid, reliable structure. The complexity arises when we travel back in time. We maintain the exact same structural logic, but the verb to be must shift to its past tense forms.
Is becomes was. Are becomes were.
Let's examine the deeply nostalgic examples provided in the source material. The text paints a picture of a childhood town. In Unai, there was a big river.
Singular existence in the past. One big river existing in a time that is no longer present. There was.
And then the text asks a question about the family's agricultural property. Were there animals?
Notice the inversion for the question and the plural verb were because animals is plural. And the answer provided is so specific and charming. Yes, one dog named Lucinho, one horse, one cat named Luna.
Because there is a collective group of 3 animals, the existence is plural. If they were making a declarative sentence, they would say, there were animals on the ranch.
I love that we know the dog's name is Lucinho. It grounds the abstract grammar in personal reality. So the ironclad rule for our listeners is this. Present singular is there is. Present plural is there are. Past singular is there was. Past plural is there were.
And banish the verb have from your existence vocabulary forever.
A vital correction. Now, the second half of the grammar notes transitions from the existence of physical objects to the existence of actions in the past. Specifically, how we discuss past habits using the phrase used to.
Oh, the psychology of used to is fascinating. It carries an inherent sense of loss or evolution.
It does. Let's analyze the formula first. The structure is the subject, followed by the phrase used to, followed by the base infinitive form of the main verb. For example, I used to play tennis.
To really understand the power of this phrase, we have to contrast it with other tenses. Why not just use the simple past? Why not just say, I played tennis?
Right. I play tennis is an isolated event. It could mean you played one time in 2015 or you played yesterday. It states a fact of action.
Exactly.
But I used to play tennis communicates two profound pieces of information simultaneously. First, it establishes that the action was a repeated, consistent habit over a significant period of time. Second, and most crucially, it declares that the habit is completely dead. You absolutely do not play tennis anymore.
I always compare used to an old favorite pair of shoes sitting in the back of your closet. For years, you wore those shoes every single day. They were comfortable, they were your daily habit.
I love this analogy.
But now, your feet have changed, or the shoes are worn out. You still have the memory of them, but you never ever wear them anymore. That is a used to habit.
That is a perfect analogy. The notes provide excellent examples of these abandoned habits. When I was a child, I used to ride a horse. The childhood is over. The horseback riding is over.
And she used to go out with her girlfriends every weekend. The implication is that her life has changed. Perhaps she had children or moved away, and the weekend habit is dead.
But here is where we must sound the alarm. There is a mechanical trap in this grammar point that catches almost every student, particularly when forming negative sentences and questions.
Ah, yes, the notorious double past tense error. Let's dissect the negative form. To make a past tense sentence negative in English, we must employ the auxiliary verb did attached to not, creating didn't.
Right, I didn't go, I didn't see.
Notice what happens to the main verbs there. Go, see? They are in the present, base form. Why? Because the auxiliary word absorbs all the grammatical gravity of the past tense. English does not tolerate double past tense markers. If did is in the sentence, the main verb is stripped of its past tense identity.
So when students try to make used to negative, they logically assume they should write I didn't used to, with a D at the end of use.
Which is grammatically illegal. The did steals the past tense power from used. The correct mandatory form is I didn't used to. No D on the word use.
Let me repeat that because it is so crucial. Affirmative, I used to smoke. With a D negative, I didn't used to smoke. No D.
And this exact same mechanical theft occurs in questions because questions require the auxiliary did.
The notes have a great example. Did you used to call your boyfriend every day? Notice it is did you used to, not did you used to.
It is a microscopic detail, but mastering the absence of that D in negative and interrogative structures is the hallmark of an advanced speaker. It proves you understand the underlying mechanics of auxiliary verbs.
And understanding those mechanics is what gives you the confidence to write. Which brings us to the ultimate arena of language application, the writer's room.
Writing is the ultimate test of fluency. In conversation, you can use hand gestures, facial expressions, and rapid corrections to make yourself understood. Writing is naked, it is permanent, it relies entirely on structural integrity.
Which is why I believe that submitting a first draft for critique is an act of profound bravery. Today, we are looking at an essay submitted by student B, the wonderful Sandra Teixeira. The prompt was to describe who she and her friends are.
Let's read Sandra's first draft exactly as she wrote it, honoring the effort she put onto the page.
Here is Sandra's text. My best friends are Nilda and Amanda. They are very talkative and responsible. They both work at the hospital. Nilda has the same work as me. She works at the same position. Amanda is a nurse. She works in the ICU, intensive care unit. Amanda is young, but Nilda is older than Amanda. They are married. Nilda has one child. Amanda has two children. Amanda lives near my house. Nilda lives in the same neighborhood. Sandra is an intelligent woman. At work, she is responsible, and as an English student, she is hardworking.
Before we offer any critique, we must celebrate the victories in this text.
Oh, there are so many.
Sandra successfully deployed high-level vocabulary from the current class. She used talkative, responsible, intelligent, and hardworking correctly in context. The message is 100% comprehensible. If she sent this in an email, the recipient would understand every fact about Nilda and Amanda.
It is a massive success. But, as her guides, our job is not just to celebrate comprehension, it is to elevate her to the B1 level of fluency. So let's put on our editor hats. What is the primary structural issue here?
Well, the draft relies almost exclusively on simple independent clauses. Amanda is a nurse. She works in the ICU. Amanda is young. This creates a staccato rhythm. It reads a bit like a drum beat. Bam, bam, bam.
Right.
To reach B1 fluency, a writer must demonstrate the ability to weave these isolated facts into a cohesive narrative fabric.
We need to build bridges between the sentences. We do that using relative pronouns and subordinating conjunctions.
Exactly. Let's look at the first block. They both work at the hospital. Nilda has the same work as me. She works at the same position. Amanda is a nurse. She works in the ICU. First, we must correct a minor grammatical slip. Sandra wrote, she work. It must be. She works due to third-person singular conjugation.
Right. She works. Now, how do we combine this?
Instead of isolated facts, we can use the relative pronoun who and the comparative conjunction whereas. We can transform it to Nelda and I share the same position at the hospital, whereas Amanda is a dedicated nurse who works in the intensive care unit.
Oh, that is beautiful. The word whereas establishes a sophisticated contrast between their roles and who smoothly attaches the location, the ICU, to Amanda's identity.
Let's look at the geography section. Amanda lives near my house. Nilda lives in the same neighborhood.
They are two separate thoughts. We can unify them by focusing on the shared result. They both live in my neighborhood, which makes it easy for us to stay close. The relative pronoun, which allows us to add a consequence to the fact.
Taking all of the structural feedback into account, let's present a polished second draft of Sandra's essay, a target for her to aim for.
It would sound something like this. My best friends are Nilda and Amanda, who are both very talkative and responsible women working at the hospital. Nilda and I share the same position, whereas Amanda is a dedicated nurse working in the intensive care unit. Although Amanda is younger than Nilda, they are both married. Nilda has one child, and Amanda has two. We are very close, especially since they both live in my neighborhood. As for myself, I strive to be an intelligent and responsible professional at work and a hardworking student in my English studies.
That is a phenomenal evolution. It retains all of Sandra's original intent and vocabulary, but it flows with the sophisticated rhythm of a B1 level writer. Notice the use of it. Although to contrast their ages, and especially since to provide reasoning for their closeness.
Sandra, you built an incredibly solid foundation. With just a few grammatical bridges, your writing soared. With your consent, we would be absolutely honored to publish this final polished version on the school's blog at students.AcademiaBSB.com.br blog. It is a perfect template for other students to study.
It serves as undeniable proof of the progress happening in Group T262.
It really does. As we begin to review the overarching performance of the class, the progress is not just anecdotal, it is mathematically proven. Group T262, you are systematically dismantling the barriers between you and the B1 level.
Let's look at the hard data from our platform analytics. In this module alone, your collective vocabulary growth spiked by an impressive 41 new words. This brings your active comprehensive lexicon repertoire to exactly 119 words.
Think about that. 119 tools in your cognitive toolbox. That is enough linguistic material to build a house.
Furthermore, your oral fluency and speech engagement span averaged 48 minutes, and your listening wavelength remained highly focused at 17 minutes and 12 seconds. But the most revealing statistic we pulled from the back end is your phonetic deviation ratio, which currently sits at 323%.
Okay, 323% sounds like a terrifyingly high number. We need to explain what that metric actually measures so nobody panics.
Right. The phonetic deviation ratio compares the pronunciation errors made when you read the past class material versus the completely new current class material. A ratio of 323% means you made over 3 times as many errors attempting to pronounce words you had never received phonetic instruction for.
Which makes perfect biological sense. When the Brazilian brain encounters a new English spelling, neuroplasticity dictates that it will attempt to apply Portuguese phonetic rules to it. You will try to say matli tiki si because that is how your neural pathways are currently paved.
Exactly. This ratio isn't a failure. It is mathematical proof of why passive reading is insufficient for language acquisition. You cannot just look at the word heart and guess how the jaw drops. You must be explicitly taught the mechanics of the dos sound versus the deuces sound in hurt. Today's rigorous phonetic drills were designed specifically to crush that deviation ratio.
Science backing up the pedagogy. To solidify the foundation we built today, let's review the grammar reference points. We completely deconstructed the mechanics of past habits and the philosophy of existence. To review the source materials, you will want to revisit Unit 20 regarding used to, Unit 16 covering the past simple of be, and Unit 3 for the deep dive into there is and there are.
We also briefly grazed the concepts found in Unit 107 regarding prepositions of time, which serves as the perfect bridge into our future.
Yes. Let's talk about the upcoming linguistic scope. In our next session, we are going to confront some of the most confusing elements of spatial and temporal grammar. We will dissect the difference between asking how far and how long. We will master the vocabulary of giving directions so you never feel lost in a foreign city again.
And we will tackle the dreaded prepositions of time.
Oh, prepositions, the tiny words that cause massive headaches. I want to leave you with a linguistic cliffhanger to ponder before our next class.
Okay, what is it?
Imagine you are attending a crucial business conference. A colleague texts you and says, the CEO's presentation is starting on Monday. That makes sense. We use on for days of the week. But here's the mystery. When Monday arrives, does the presentation start in time or on time?
Oh, that is a good one. The difference between being in time and on time is vast. One implies a rigid schedule. The other implies a dramatic rescue before a deadline. Using the wrong one in a business email could completely change your professional image.
We will solve that temporal mystery in our next deep dive. But before we let you go about your Friday, I have the absolute honor of interrupting our schedule for the most anticipated segment of the show, gamification points.
Yes, the ultimate reward for cognitive labor.
For any new listeners, let me explain the philosophy behind this. At BSB Academy Smart Courses, we believe that every ounce of effort deserves recognition. Learning a language is a marathon of microtasks. So every time you speak up in an online class, every time you complete a grammar quiz, every time you bravely submit an essay like Sandra did, you earn points.
These points, displayed as little stars or estrelunias, accumulate on your personal user profile on our digital platform. They aren't just for show. They propel you up the class ranking leaderboard.
It is a friendly, motivating competition. Earning enough stars unlocks exclusive access to the room of possibilities, and for the truly diligent, a spot on the coveted podium. It is our way of celebrating the fact that you took your duties seriously today.
So let's consult the platform analytics for today's session.
And now, looking at the real-time data for your incredible focus, your dedication to jaw drops and phonetics, and your engagement with today's deep dive, your stars earned today totals a massive 18 stars. Yes, 18 new stars have been deposited directly into your profile. Congratulations.
Wow, what a phenomenal haul. 18 stars is a significant leap up the leaderboard. You earned every single one of them through sheer diligence.
We are so incredibly proud of your daily achievements. You are doing the hard, invisible work, and the results are blooming.
As we prepare to close out our time together, I want to pivot back to something we discussed during the grammar section. We spent a lot of time analyzing the phrase used to. We talked about the ghosts of past habits, the shoes we no longer wear.
The childhood horseback riding, the weekend routines that have faded away.
Exactly. My provocative thought for you to carry into your weekend is this. How do the words, the reactions, and the habits that you used to rely on shape the woman you are right now? Every time you recognize you are being stubborn and actively choose to be open-minded, you are killing an old habit. Every time you bravely speak up in English, despite the fear of making a mistake, you are leaving behind the woman who used to stay silent. You are constantly rewriting your own narrative through the language you choose to adopt.
That is deeply resonant. The past isn't just a discarded pair of shoes. It is the very foundation we stand upon to reach higher. And speaking of the profound impact of language on our identity and relationships, I want to invoke a voice from the past who understood the social mechanics of communication better than almost anyone in English literature.
A brilliant mind to close out our session.
I am thinking of the incomparable Jane Austen. In her seminal 1813 novel, Pride and Prejudice, she wrote a line that perfectly encapsulates how our words reflect our inner lives and societal duties. She wrote, "My good qualities are under your protection, and you are to exaggerate them as much as possible, and in return it belongs to me to find occasions for teasing and quarreling with you as often as may be."
It is such a sparkling, witty observation. Austen was a master at using language to expose the truth of relationships. In that quote, she is satirizing the transactional nature of communication, how we use our words to protect, to challenge, to be supportive or stubborn with the people around us.
And navigating those relationships is the entire point of everything we do here. Memorizing the difference between paint and pint, mastering the existence of there's is, practicing the jaw drop of heart. All of these mechanics are just tools. They're the hammer and nails. The ultimate goal is to build bridges to other human beings.
It has been a profound privilege to explore these notes with you today. Keep studying, keep expanding that lexicon, and keep earning those stars.
We will be right back here next time to solve the riddle of in time versus on time. Until then, keep thriving, keep pushing your boundaries, and never forget our school's ultimate truth.
It's not only about the language, it's all about communication.